Hey, welcome to another proven sales letter breakdown video. In this one, I'm actually going to take a look at the most successful, most profitable, and biggest direct response promotion of all time, the End of America promotion from Stansberry Research, written by legendary copywriter Mike Palmer. Now, since this is such a huge promotion, it's 39 pages long, so it's like a mini book in its own, and it has a lot of proof elements and everything, and I want to make sure that I cover most of the most important aspects of it. I'm going to break this video down into two components, okay? So this is going to be the first one, in which we're going to take a look at the headline, the lead, the introduction aspect of it, also the unique mechanism of the problem and a few other elements. And then in the next video, we're going to take a look at the offer itself and the later parts of a sales argument. But this is going to have the uniqueness of it, let's say. What I cover in this video will be all the copywriting knowledge and copywriting techniques that actually made End of America such an amazingly effective promotion. I think even to this day, it's still one of the most, I think it's the most successful direct response promotion of all time. It brought in well over 1 million customers. And it was huge. Like, everybody was talking about this in about 2010, 2011, right? So that's why we're going to focus on this one, but this is definitely a more advanced copywriting case study. So if you're new to the channel, or if you're new to this whole thing, or new to copywriting or sales letters or stuff like that, I definitely recommend you check out some of my other proven sales letter videos as well. I'm gonna leave a link below this video in the description section, where you can find the entire playlist of these videos. You're gonna find space ads there, emails, Facebook ads, very short type of sales pages, as well as long sales pages, magalogs, all that good stuff. But this one is definitely a masterclass in advertising and in copywriting, because this is the highest level copy that you can ever do, right? Mike Palmer, he is still, I don't know whether he is working now or not. Probably he's retired, but he's written several of these winners for Agora divisions, and you only have to nail one of these promotions in a lifetime in order to be renowned for the achievement. It's a huge achievement. It's like winning the gold medal at the Olympics, maybe even more, even better. So the other cool thing I want to mention about this promotion, the End of America, is that it has a very nice prediction lead. So Michael Masterson and Mark Ford talked about actually they're the same person theoretically. He just used an alias for it, but they talked about several lead types, and one of them is called prediction lead, in which you make a bold or dire prediction about what's going to happen in the world. And the headline totally reflects this, because it says, "Get ready for the most important day in America in 50 years. It's coming in 2011. Now, we got to get some context to this, because in a vacuum, this wouldn't really mean so much. But keep in mind that this was written shortly after the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. And people were definitely scared, right? They didn't really have a greed mindset anymore. Most of them haven't really experienced a true crash before in their lives. Market sentiment was very positive in those times, just like it is nowadays. And just like nowadays, a lot of people are afraid that a big dip is coming, a big recession is coming, because everything is in a bubble, right? But this happened after the bubble has burst, and the consumer sentiment and investor sentiment has shifted to much more fear-based messaging, right? Today, we have greed-based messaging. It means that the only way to sell these financial newsletters that this one is actually selling is to pump up people's desire, is to paint the dream of how much money they can make if they invest in this stock or this type of ETF or something like that. The only way to do it currently is that way. But sometimes these things change, like, right? They're cyclical. Some people in certain market conditions, they have a greed mindset, but then that can shift into a fear mindset. And this was written in a fear mindset, and it's very visible because all throughout the promotion itself, we have many problem and agitation without the solution type of little parts or paragraphs, and Mike Palmer definitely did a great job in really agitating the problem and the fear and the pain of what would happen if the dollar collapsed, right? If it was no longer the world's reserve currency and it would lose most of its value. That's the main predicament here. But obviously, we don't know at the beginning, because that's why good secret leads or good prediction leads, they don't really give away everything all at once. They just tease it so that people read more and more and more. So what I'm gonna do is that I actually read like a little bit of the lead, and then we're gonna get back to analyzing, what's happening there inside the lead. And after the lead, which is here, we're not gonna read the copy itself. I'm just gonna like showcase what's happening from a higher level perspective, like what little element comes after another element, and how is the whole sales argument constructed. So we're not going to dive into like the micro things here, but instead look at the strategy. But in the lead itself, I want you to also see how a good lead, because this is probably one of the best leads of all time. Leads have a huge effect of how well a sales letter will do, as well as the headline. But I want you to see how a good lead, like one of the best of all time, actually looks like. And this is a longer one, but I think we're gonna have some fun with it. So hope you are gonna join me on this ride. And before we get started, please consider liking this video and also subscribing to the channel if you're new here. So get ready for the most important day in America in 50 years. It's coming in 2011. So remember, this is relevant because it's happening after the financial crisis, and people are still afraid that something even worse can happen to their money. Then the subhead is, warning, what you're about to see is controversial and may be offensive to some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. So this definitely gets attention because, like, warning, what can this be? What can this thing be that it's offensive to some audiences, and then viewer discretion is advised? It has some sort of a little reverse psychology element to it, and as a result, people actually wanna watch it or read it more. So then we have the little intro. Hello, my name is Porter Stansberry. A little over 10 years ago, I founded Stansberry & Associates Investment Research. It has become one of the largest and most recognized investment research companies in the world, serving hundreds of thousands of subscribers in more than 120 countries. You may know of our firm because of the work we did over the last several years, helping investors avoid the big disasters associated with Wall Street's collapse. So, actually, I'm going to analyze these paragraphs as we go through them, okay? Because then you also see what's happening here. So we have a little intro, which is important because the reader wants to know, like, who is talking to them. Then we have an answer to their question, because at this point they start asking, okay, but who are you and why should I trust you, Porter Stansberry? Well, we get the answer to the who. But then the why should I trust you, we get the answers from here. So we get a little bit of authority build up, some credibility as well, so that we get introduced to this person. Then we continue with some proof elements. And just notice as we go through this sales letter how much proof there is. Like every single argument that's made is backed up by proof. Every single prediction or promise or exclamation or proclamation or anything you want, it's backed up by tons of examples and proof. And this is one of the hallmarks of extremely high level copywriting, is that there's tons of proof behind everything. And that's what you need when you want to persuade a skeptical audience who've seen it all before, who is jaded from all the empty promises that everybody else made to them, who are afraid that the market will collapse, and they definitely don't want to lose their money. So just keep in mind that the target audience is these type of people for this one. And you definitely want to make a very, very strong argument, because otherwise people are just gonna not believe it, especially if it's a big prediction. Like with prediction leads, you need a lot of proof, because why should they trust you that, the biggest day, the most important day in America in 50 years, and it's coming in 2011? Why should I believe it? I never heard about something like this. I never heard about, dollar collapsing. That sounds ridiculous. Well, in order to shift, like the higher, the more belief shifting you have to do, the more proof you also have to implement, because otherwise people are just not going to care and they're not going to believe you. So let's continue. We warned investors to avoid Fannie and Freddie, Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, and General Motors, and dozens of other companies that have since collapsed. Once again, this is proof. We even helped our subscribers find opportunities to profit from these moves by shorting stocks and buying put options. To my knowledge, no other research firm in the world can match our record of correctly predicting the catastrophe that occurred in 2008. So at this point, our target audience knows about these things. So remember, we are always targeting them. And by mentioning these achievements, the copywriter achieves likability with the reader. So readers are gonna feel like, wow, okay, so this guy probably knows what he's talking about, because whoa, he definitely predicted these. And then we have a little transition to reason why. And once again, reason why is very important, because it's after certain stages, like after a certain level, or with certain audiences, target audiences, it's not enough to just manipulate them emotionally, or it's not enough to just appeal to their emotions. You definitely want to give them a reason why behind everything you do. Like, why have you even created this whole long document, right? There must be a valid reason for it. Otherwise, why should they read it? And that's what this section is accomplishing here. So we continue. But that's not why I created this letter. I reference our success and experience with Wall Street's latest crisis because we believe there is an even bigger crisis lurking, something that will shake the very foundation of America. So this is the grim prediction, and this is the reason why behind the letter itself. And that is why I've spent a significant amount of time and money in the past few months preparing this letter. In short, I want to talk to you about a specific event that will take place in America in the near future, which could actually bring our country and our way of life to a grinding halt. So this kind of teases, it builds more curiosity in people, because at this point they want to find out, like, oh my God, what can this be? Like, what's gonna happen? I have no idea what's here. And as a result, they have to read more. And the more they read, the more they're gonna buy. And then we create an open loop by saying this looming crisis is related to the financial crisis of 2008, but it is infinitely more dangerous, as I'll explain in this later. As I'll explain in this letter. Sorry about this. So we have an open loop explaining what I'm gonna explain later. So in order for you to really understand that, you have to keep reading. That's the main part of this. Then we continue with an agitation element. So as this problem comes to a head, I expect there to be riots in the streets, arrests at an unprecedented scale, and martial law enforced by the US military. Wow, pretty grim. Believe me, I don't make this prediction lightly, and I have no interest in trying to scare you. So this is needed here. It's an objection handling element, because at this point, some people might feel like, oh, okay, so there's a grim prediction here, but like, come on, man, like, we live in the United States of America. What can happen? And why are you trying to scare me here? And that's why we get a preemptive objection handling element. And then we continue. I'm simply following my research to its logical conclusion. I did the same when I tracked Fannie and Freddie's accounting, the same with General Motors and Bear Stearns and the rest. And when I began giving this warning in 2006, no one took me very seriously. Not at first. But then, most mainstream commentators just ignored me. And when I presented my case and exposed the facts at economic conferences, they got angry. They couldn't refute my research, but they weren't ready to accept the enormity of its conclusions either. So this is proof. once again, remember, and this will be true throughout this letter, whenever Mike Palmer makes a prediction or a claim or a promise or something like that, he always backs it up with proof. So here, the claim is that there's going to be something like a big crash or something that's even going to be even bigger than the 2008 crisis that people are already terrified of. And then he doesn't just say, you know, just believe me because I have beautiful eyes. He says, you know, you don't necessarily have to believe me, but this is what I found from my research. And to be honest, most of this sales letter is made up of research. So later on, we're going to find a lot of charts and examples and historic references and even more charts and specific numbers, quotes from economists. So in itself, this is like a dissertation into the state of the economy and what's going to likely happen based on research. And you always want to make your sales letter valuable in itself because that's what draws people in. They want to read something that interests them. They want to read, especially this target audience, stuff that is relevant to them because it might hold the key to how their portfolio will do in the long term. It's very important. So then, after backing this first claim up with proof, we have a setting expectations element. So this is there just to, again, set the expectations for the whole sales letter because remember, we are still in the lead section. And the job of the lead is to basically act like a trailer or like a summary of what's going to happen later on and why people should actually spend time and read the sales letter itself. So the lead is selling the sales letter, and then the sales letter is selling the product. There are several letters to these longer term sales arguments that you have to take into consideration, and the best copywriters know this. So Mike Palmer says, "That's why before I go any further, I have to warn you. What I'm about to say is controversial. It will offend many people, Democrats, Republicans, and Tea Partiers alike. In fact, I've already received dozens of pieces of hate mail, and the ideas and solutions I'm going to present might seem somewhat radical to you at first, perhaps even un-American. My guess is that as you read this letter, you'll say, there's no way this could really happen, not here. But just remember, no one believed me 3 years ago when I said the world's largest mortgage bankers, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, would soon go bankrupt. And no one believed me when I said GM would soon be bankrupt as well, or that the same would happen to General Growth Properties, the biggest owner of mall property in America. But again, that's exactly what happened." So notice I'm getting goosebumps because of this, but I'm a big copy nerd, but I'm sure that you also appreciate the writing prowess of Mike Palmer here because it's a slippery slide. It gets people reading more and more and more. It's like they're still wondering what this grim prediction can be. Like, what's going to happen in America in 50 years? And why is there so many future-pacing and open-loop elements here? Like, wow, this secret that's going to happen, it's going to do this, and it's going to do that, and it's going to be worse than the financial crisis. And it's people won't believe it, and it's gonna seem like this unnatural thing that is gonna defy expectations. What can it be? Well, the only way to find out is for you to read more of the sales letter. But this is also like an objection handling element. So there's no way, you'll feel like there's no way this could really happen, not here. Again, very, very, very smart copywriting by Mike Palmer. So the claim, again, just so that you can see that we have all these little elements that show up time and time again. Okay, so claim, proof, sometimes claim, objection handling, proof. So the claim is, it's going to be bad. It's even though I mentioned a problem to the World Economic Conference, nobody took me seriously, and everybody thought that I was crazy, and people won't believe me. But just remember, I was right about this and I was right about that, and nobody believed me then. So this acts as proof. Once again, a proof element. And then we go into, after the proof, we've gained some credibility in people's eyes, not too much, but a little bit. And then we can allow ourselves to get into more of the dimensionalization aspect of it. So at this point, we already have a tease that something bad is going to happen. We have proof that it's probably going to happen, and that you, as the reader, should listen to me as the voice of this sales letter. And that's where we go into dimensionalizing the fears. So Mike Palmer continues. And that brings us to today. The same financial problems I've been tracking from bank to bank, from company to company for the last 5 years have now found their way into the US Treasury. I'll explain how this came to be. What it means is critically important to you and every American. The next phase in this crisis will threaten our very way of life. So again, it's a bold prediction. The savings of millions will be wiped out. The disaster will change your business and your work. It will dramatically affect your savings accounts, investments, and retirement. It will change everything about your normal way of life, where you vacation, where you send your kids and grandkids to school, how and where you shop, the way you protect your family and home. So all these things they're dimensionalizing the fears that our target audience already has. I'll explain how I know these events are about to happen. You can decide for yourself if I'm full of hot air. As for me, I'm more certain about this looming crisis than I've ever been about anything else in my life. So we dimensionalize the fears, and then we give kind of like the illusion of control. We give it back to the reader, because it's you cannot really convince people to do something if you try to force your opinions on them. That just creates resistance. But if you say, just read this letter, you don't necessarily have to believe me, but get your own conclusion. I'm just going to present the facts and what I know about this. Then you have a way better shot of actually converting people. And then we have a little bit, we're still in the lead, by the way. The lead, this one, lasts until this first subhead. Okay, so bear with me for this, but I hope you're enjoying this. So I know that debts don't just disappear. I know that bailouts have big consequences. And unlike most of the pundits on TV, I know a lot about finance and accounting. Of course, the most important part of this situation is not what's happening, but rather what you can do about it. In other words, will you be prepared for the proverbial shit hits the fan? Don't worry, I'm not organizing a rally or demonstration, and I've turned down every request to run for political office. So what's happening here? We gave people a prediction, once again, like a dire prediction. We just always approach it from a slightly different angle. Then we asked a philosophical question, like, will you be prepared when the proverbial shit hits the fan? Will you? Most people start thinking about this and they're going to feel like, no, I'm not prepared at all. And then we have an objection handling element here. So don't worry, I'm not organizing a rally or demonstration. And I'm not running for office. Because at this point, a lot of people might feel like, so why is this Stansberry guy trying to scare me with this one? Okay, I get it. It's starting to make sense, but like, what's his agenda? Is he trying to run for office? Is he trying to is he like an artist, a scam artist or something? And that's what this objection handling element answers. And it's followed up with reasons why, which can act as proof in itself. It just explains the reason behind this whole argument, the reason why we're telling these things. So it goes like this. Instead, I want to show you exactly what I'm doing personally to protect and even grow my money, and how you can prepare as well. You see, I can tell you with near 100% certainty that most Americans will not know what to do when commodity prices, things like milk, bread, and gasoline soar. They won't know what to do when banks close and their credit cards stop working, or when they're not allowed to buy gold or foreign currencies, or when food stamps fail. So these things agitate everything and they contextualize everything. It makes sense. Suddenly, it's not an an ethereal concept like, hey, you know, the dollar is going to lose some of its value. We're going to discover that later on, but this is the mechanism here. It's not ethereal anymore. It makes sense. I can imagine how it's going to feel like when the price of milk and bread and gasoline will soar. I can maybe not imagine, but I can definitely picture what's gonna happen if my credit card stops working, if banks close, if, you know, it's almost like the apocalypse. It's the end of the world, for most people at least. In short, our way of life in America is about to change, I promise you. In this letter, I'll show you exactly what is happening. You can challenge every single one of my facts, and you'll find that I'm right about each allegation I make. And then you can decide for yourself. So again, it's giving the control back to people, because everybody likes to be in control, and it's just it doesn't seem so pushy, right? People don't like pushy, they don't like aggressive, they want to reach their own conclusions. Now obviously you can guide their ways of thinking, you can still manipulate them if you want, but they want to feel like they are getting to the same conclusion. And this is true whether you're a copywriter or a therapist or a counselor or just a parent who's trying to like convince your kid to do something, or you just want to convince your partner to do something. It's the same thing there. So then we have a philosophical question which says, will you act now to protect yourself and your family from this catastrophe that's brewing right now in Washington? I hope so. That's why I wrote this letter. You see, reason why. Like, you don't need any more like this. Reason why, the perfectly executed. And then the final little paragraphs say, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'm doing personally and what you can do as well. I can't promise you'll emerge from this crisis completely unharmed, but I can just about guarantee you'll be a lot better off than people who don't follow these simple steps. So it's a win-win for the reader. But I'm getting ahead of myself just a bit. Let me back up and show you in the simplest terms possible what is going on, why I am so concerned, and what I believe will happen in the next 12 months. Wow, like this lead is definitely one of the best leads of all time. I noticed how it seems helpful and friendly and approachable and easily understandable. And even if, you know, this is written, a lot of people in this target audience, they are good with finance, they are good with investments, they're rich, they're sophisticated. And do you see any super complicated lingo here or extremely long sentences? Do you feel like this is I don't know, just too complex and tiring or something? No, you feel like you want to read more because you want to find out what this whole thing is about. And even though we are already 3 pages into the sales letter itself, that's several minutes if this was a video, and obviously it had a video aspect as well. But we are way in, and as I'm reading it, I'm getting more and more excited to find out what's gonna happen, and that's the great, that's the gold standard and the true dream of a copywriter, for the reader to feel something like this. Okay, so since we're already at 28 minutes in this video, and I only want to split this promotion up into 2 parts, we're gonna like speed up a little bit and not really read the copy. So I'm gonna leave that to you. I definitely recommend you read this one because it's one of the best copywriting pieces of all time. But we're going to look at what's happening here from a structural point of view. So from this part on, we have some subheads and we have certain elements that are kind of repeat. So we have some belief shifting, which means that people have some pre-existing beliefs about the economy, about the monetary system, about, you know, how things work in their lives. And if you want to shift that, you gotta work really hard to actually do it, because if you make a claim, you gotta back it up with a lot of proof, as I said. And that's why it might seem a little bit redundant. Like you might feel that Mike Palmer is making a few arguments which kind of are repetitive, but the more proof you have, the more people will believe you, and it's a very important aspect of a great sales letter. So we start off with like the greatest danger America has ever faced. Like this part, is still teasing the problem, so it doesn't necessarily give it away just yet. But we just explain problems and agitate them. So we start an argument as well. This is just like as if you were a lawyer and you want to make a case in front of a judge. It's very similar. You have a logical argument that you want to go through people, like a logical argument that you want to demonstrate, and in order to demonstrate it, you have to create a rational argument, because that's the only way for people to actually believe you. And that's what's happening here. We start by explaining that, the government has been borrowing so much money and it has a lot of debt. And this was in 2010, around that time. Nowadays, the United States just printed $5-6 trillion worth of money in like a year. So I think I saw this somewhere lately that 25% of every single dollar that was created throughout history was created last year in 2020. So 25% of every single dollar in existence since the inception of the United States of America, 25% of that money was created just in 1 year in 2020. Yeah. And this one was 10 years before this. So you can imagine how big this bubble is today. And this is still relevant, actually. It hasn't quite happened yet, at least not with the severity that this sales letter is describing here, but eventually it will in some shape or form. So just keep this in mind as you're reading this. So we describe the problem, what's happening here. We provide some proof into everything, like a claim, the government was borrowing so much money, proof. The National Inflation Association also shows this. Then we follow it up with a unique mechanism of the problem, which is very important in any sales argument, which basically means that Mike Palmer is getting into explaining actually what is the real problem, what's the real problem behind the prediction that we had in the beginning. Well, the real problem is that the government itself is going to be so indebted that it cannot continue functioning forever like that. And if the dollar loses its world reserve currency status, then suddenly the whole bubble is going to burst and everything is going to fall down, crashing and burning. So that's the unique mechanism of the problem. And obviously it's a big claim. And nowadays we might have heard this from many places, but back then in 2010, this was something revolutionary. And it just resonated with people because of the global sentiment after the financial crisis. But we do need a lot of proof whenever we make all these claims. But that's why Mike Palmer uses so many proof elements, examples, analogies, reason why copy, all that good stuff. So we get even more information about the unique mechanism of the problem. We have some contextualization, which is also just putting things into context, because a lot of people can't really imagine it. Even if we start talking about what it would mean if, what it means to have the world reserve currency in dollars, most people, they know it, but they can't really imagine it. But when you say, let's just say you're a German and you want to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, you can't just pay for your oil in German marks or the new euro currency, because the oil is priced in dollars. So you have to buy dollars first, then buy your oil. So this is contextualization. It puts it into context. It makes people feel like, oh, I get it. It makes sense. That's what it does. And it has a rational argument to it. And then, as you can see, we also have some charts as well as proof, with a little bit of recap element in the center of it, which I like. It says we are in way over our heads. And this just shows that the total US government debt has skyrocketed over the past few years, and nowadays it would be even higher. That's the problem. So as you can see, this problem hasn't been fixed yet. And then we agitate it more. It's hey, it's gonna be worse than the financial crisis. It's going to be if this bubble pops, a lot of countries will stop accepting dollars for payment. And think about what that will do to like the price of oil. So we bring in an example. It's like, hey, the reason why the United States of America has done so well, one of the main reasons is because they had cheap oil for so long. And just look at the average per gallon price of oil in the United States, and then look at it, I mean, in 2010, around that time, and then look at it in other parts of the world, that it's higher. And then here's the thing, oil is priced in dollars. So if, we lose the dollar as the reserve currency, then suddenly oil is going to become way more expensive in the United States as well. And think about having to pay 2 times as much or even more just for transportation. It would definitely disrupt society. And then we have examples to prove this point. So he says, in fact, the same thing happened to Great Britain in the 1970s. So we get a little mini story of what happened in Britain after World War II. And this target audience definitely hates Democrats because they're conservative and they're Republicans in most cases. And then Obama was definitely not popular with this audience. So Mike Palmer does a great job at taking a jab at Obama and all the socialists, like how the socialists messed up Britain in 1967, how they created a devaluation of the British currency by 14% overnight. So it's just a good example that proves the point. It acts as proof. And it, at the same time, agitates everything with a great example. It says that, suddenly people who had pounds became 14% poorer. And then the inflation in Britain in 1975 was 27% in a single year. And then here are some quotes from media outlets or people, how this impacted their lives. So this is both proof and contextualization at the same time. And we also have some objection handling elements here and there. We have something like, maybe you don't think something similar can happen here, but I'm telling you it's already underway. So this preemptively answers an objection that people have, and it sets up the possibility for Mike Palmer to also bring in other examples, like how, all the food that we get from Central and South America, everything, what if the dollar got devalued and everything became more expensive? And check it out, what's happening even to this day, like cotton prices are up 80% and everything is up. And look at this chart, it's proof that, copper is up. Soybeans, corn, silver, all these commodities, they're up because the dollar is already getting devalued. And then like most copywriters at this point would say, okay, I've done enough problem and agitation, but not Mike Palmer. He says, yeah, this is just the beginning. And then we have other dimensionalizations, like if the dollar loses a status as the world currency, then it's gonna be all these terrible things would happen. Like imagine housing prices, what would happen to them, and what would happen to other parts of the economy and your life as well. And then we have some proof after it, because this is a prediction, it's a claim, and then we have proof. Like just look at one European country in the 1990s, and we get a nice little story of how there was this country, and it's not given away yet. Later on, we learn it's Yugoslavia, but and also there was a war there, so it's an information that's left out a little bit, but technically it's true. So it's Yugoslavia, but it's not given away just yet. But imagine all these things that could happen to the US as well, like unemployment rate 30%, and then there was super high inflation, and between October 1993 and January 1995, prices increased by, get this, 5 quadrillion %. So this is it's incredibly bad. Incredibly bad. Look at these zeros. Even if people in our target audience don't believe this, and like, come on, there's not a big chance for the US for this to happen, but even if they don't believe it, they see these numbers, they're gonna get scared, like massively. And then immediately we have a contextualization element by saying, In other words, a loaf of bread that cost $1 in 1993 suddenly cost 15 trillion. Yeah, that's 50 trillion. Okay, so think about that as hyperinflation. And the whole point of this is to scare people, actually, to make that emotional connection with them, to really scare them so that they actually become receptive to the solution later on, which is going to be like the special investment strategy that probably the guru behind this promotion figured out. So we have even more dimensionalization, then we have even more dimensionalization, like what would happen, like, you know, the operating buses dropped by 60% and there were riots on the streets, and because of the high inflation, people didn't want to keep their original currency anymore. Everybody wanted a more stable currency like German marks. So that's going to happen with the dollar as well. Nobody's going to want dollars anymore. Maybe they want to have gold and other currencies, maybe euros. But then the government is going to implement capital controls, which will push people to the black market. You know, and we have an argument of all the bad things that could happen. And I'm not saying it would, but it could. Okay, so there is the possibility for this, because this is what happens when countries, especially more third world type of countries, experience these problems. And the only reason why the United States has been immune to this so far is because it's a dominant country in the world. It has the biggest military, it has the dollar, which is the world's reserve currency. But what happens if China comes up? What happens if Russia comes up? Well, Russia probably won't, but China, there's a realistic chance that it might suppress the United States in a few decades, okay? That's why we already have like tariff wars, and Trump started these tariff wars with China. It backfired a little bit, according to some estimates, but you know, there's this covert war already going on between China and the United States. And then Mike Palmer goes on to agitate this even more, and he opens some loops and future paces. He says, I can't stress this enough. You need to act now in order to protect your assets and grow your savings in the next few years. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how I'm protecting my money, my own money, and then and what I recommend doing with your own. But first, let me show you what exactly is going on right now. America must be very worried. So from this point on, we still have very similar elements to what we looked at before. We have a prediction, like America must be worried. We have some proof of dominant voices who are definitely worried and who back this claim up. And we also have parts that kind of feel like Mike Palmer is basically debunking a massive conspiracy. Even more reasons why, and even more proof here. Like look at this. I just mentioned China a few seconds ago, and here it is: China's total holdings of US Treasury bills under 1 year maturity. So China is getting out of the dollar. Why? Because they are probably scheming in something so that, you know, eventually the dollar will lose its world reserve currency. So the dollar is no longer good here. This also paints a grim picture of what might happen if the dollar is no longer accepted, just like how the Yugoslavian currency wasn't accepted when there was super high inflation. And then he gives a few examples of various countries already not accepting dollars, which is a bit forced, to be honest. Like, this isn't necessarily true. I think it was a little bit too much fear-mongering, to my taste at least, what he did here. But we all know that, like, countries still accept dollars, most of them at least. But I get why he tried to do this, because this was needed to agitate the pain even more. But I think it's a little bit unethical, a little bit. And then, at this point, some people might still feel like, wow, but I cannot believe that this can happen in my own country, in the United States. But that's why we have an element that really challenges people's beliefs. Mike Palmer says, you know, it's even happening here in the United States of America. Like, even inside the country, some regions are not really accepting dollars anymore. Like there's no federal requirement to have the dollar as a currency of exchange, you know. So that's why there are some obscure little communities in the US itself who don't really accept dollars anymore. So there's like this Berkshires in the Berkshires region of Massachusetts, where people are accepting these things. Obviously, again, it's a little bit of fear-mongering, but there is proof to it. And at those times, I get it. It might have seemed like this will be the future. It hasn't turned out to be like this yet, but still, this still scared people. And then we get a little transition to the unique mechanism of the solution by saying that the smartest investors are taking action. So we have some quotes from Bill Gross or Jim Rogers and a few people like them, how they are actually trying to combat this potential hyperinflation that might happen. We have some proof to back up their claims as well. We have some nice charts. You know, gold and silver prices have soared over the last 10 years. So because gold and silver are traditional safe haven assets that a lot of investors flee to whenever they have inflation fears. Even now in 2021, like because the government is printing so much money, a lot of people are running to gold and silver and commodities. I also bought shares, extra shares in gold companies and silver extracting companies because, and I bought it when they weren't necessarily that valuable, not necessarily that fashionable. Nowadays they're starting to go up and up in price. So we have some more theses here. So a part that kind of teases the unique mechanism of the solution and kind of teases a new opportunity as well. So we're still not at the unique mechanism of the solution, but we got a little tease of what might be the way to actually protect your wealth. But before we get there, we still have some objection handling elements, reason why, predictions, and proof elements. Because remember, the bigger the prediction that you want to make, the more proof you need. And this is one of the biggest predictions that you can ever make, because who really believes that the United States of America will fall down because of this, that the dollar is going to collapse? Well, not many people. And that's why you need tons and tons of proof for this. So we have some more proof elements, and we have some amazingly relevant parallels, because at this point, people believe that, you know, this all sounds nice and everything, but it's unbelievable for me. So I just cannot believe it. And that's why Mike Palmer introduces a massive objection handling and reframing element here that I think I'm gonna leave to the next video, because this video is already almost 50 minutes long. So congratulations if you're still watching this. So let's just cut the video short at this point, and in the next one I'm going to return and analyze the rest of the sales letter itself, okay? The unique mechanism of the solution, the offer, and this massive and brilliant, to be honest, belief shifting thing that's happening here, with a very nice little parallel to what happened with Nazi Germany as well, and how the Jews actually rationalize that that whatever is happening, it's kind of normal, which is a very, very dangerous thing to do. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then definitely leave a like below this video, leave a comment, let me know like your number one takeaway from this, or what you enjoyed about it, or what you would improve maybe about this sales letter. And also, if you want to see the next video as well, then definitely subscribe to the channel, and also hit the little notification icon as well, because that way you'll definitely know when I release the new video, and you won't miss it, and you're gonna have a complete picture of the most successful direct response promotion of all time. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're gonna join me on the next video as well, and see you soon.